BingX, a trusted global crypto exchange. Trade spot, futures, or copy top traders easily. Sign up via the link or referral code to get 30 USDT instantly, plus up to 1,500 USDT in bonuses for verification, deposit, and trading.
The Netherlands is steadfastly advancing its legislative efforts to prohibit the importation of goods originating from illegal Israeli settlements situated in occupied Palestinian territories. This initiative persists even as the nation has temporarily halted its broader campaign for increased sanctions against Israel, a decision attributed to the recent ceasefire agreement in Gaza. Foreign Minister David Van Weel articulated this stance during a visit to the region, underscoring the partial ban as a direct response to escalating settlement expansion and the alarming surge in Israeli violence directed at Palestinians. Actions which he stated gravely jeopardize the feasibility of a two-state solution. Following a tour of a West Bank area that had reportedly been subjected to settler aggression, Mr. Van Weel conveyed to The Guardian that the current moment is not conducive to imposing further sanctions on Israel, emphasizing a desire to see the peace plan implemented and to actively encourage Israel's constructive engagement. He simultaneously affirmed that the ongoing developments in the West Bank, which threaten to further distance the prospect of a two-state solution, are not being overlooked. This Dutch commitment aligns with a growing trend within the European Union, as 5 member states have already declared their intentions to implement trade restrictions on Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. These settlements have been the focal point of considerable international concern, with reports indicating that soldiers and settlers have been responsible for the deaths of over 200 Palestinians this year alone, including 40 children. Spain and Slovenia have already enacted bans on exports from these settlements, while Ireland and Belgium are actively developing their respective legislative frameworks. Furthermore, Belgium and Spain have curtailed consular services for residents of these settlements. Minister Van Weel acknowledged the intricate and time-consuming nature of drafting this legislation, citing the European Union's predominant control over trade policy. He explained that the absence of an immediate legal basis for a complete halt to imports from all illegal settlements necessitates the creation of new policy, which must then navigate the parliamentary approval process. The past 2 years have witnessed a stark increase in attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank, coinciding with a rise in political rhetoric within Israel advocating for the annexation of these territories. October marked a disturbing peak, with an average of 8 daily Israeli assaults on individuals, property, and agricultural activities in occupied Palestine, the highest recorded since the United Nations began systematically tracking such incidents nearly 2 decades ago, with countless other incidents likely going unreported. In a significant legislative move last month, the Israeli Knesset granted preliminary approval to a bill that, if enacted, would effectively annex the West Bank by extending Israeli law to the region. Though this proposal has met with opposition from figures such as former U.S. President Donald Trump and current Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the impetus for examining trade relations with Israeli settlements gained momentum in June when 9 EU member states formally requested the European Commission to investigate avenues for reducing trade with these settlements. This request was informed by the International Court of Justice's ruling that Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories is unlawful and must be brought to an end without delay. The court further stipulated that other states have a legal obligation not to provide assistance to Israel or to legitimize the occupation. The initial request was championed by Belgium, Finland, Ireland, Luxembourg, Poland, Portugal, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden, while Israeli exports from settlements constitute a minor portion of overall trade with the EU. The imposition of sanctions is primarily intended as a potent political declaration of commitment to the establishment of a future Palestinian state, rather than a significant economic disincentive. However, the collective economic influence of the EU member states over Israel is substantial, representing a third of Israel's global trade in goods. Historically, a lack of unified action has prevented the deployment of this leverage. Recent events, particularly the widespread devastation and alleged genocidal acts in Gaza, alongside the severe humanitarian crisis, appear to be catalyzing a shift in European policy. The Netherlands, historically a staunch ally of Israel within Europe, initiated an unprecedented review in May of the EU's association agreement with Israel. the foundational treaty governing tariff-free trade and other vital economic and cultural linkages, including Israel's participation in the Horizon Research Funding Program. The review concluded that Israel had contravened its human rights obligations under the agreement, prompting the EU executive in September to advocate for a comprehensive suspension of free trade with Israel and sanctions against two far-right ministers. These proposed measures were temporarily deferred following the ceasefire brokered by Donald Trump, but they remain under consideration. Numerous senior EU diplomats have been actively engaged in a months-long campaign, urging the Union to adopt a more resolute stance in response to Israel's violations of international law in both Gaza and the West Bank. Sven Kuhn von Bergsdorf, a key organizer of this campaign and a former EU envoy to occupied Palestine, argues that banning trade with illegal settlements should be integrated into a broader suite of measures, including those proposed in September. He contends that revoking preferential trade arrangements for Israel under the association agreement, imposing sanctions on ministers Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, and suspending Israel's access to Horizon Europe, coupled with a complete embargo on trade with settlements, would deliver a powerful